Scott M. made two separate and distinct claims, and he didn't prove either of them. But we are going to go over it ever so gently. We're not really going to go over it in too deep a detail, because I'm just going to kind of show you why, I guess. I don't know why he's wrong. So he makes the first claim is that he makes a claim that there is a public easement that they could record on that would be the same as if there was a sidewalk on the side of the road. And if you combine it with his other claim, because he seems to, because he says he answers it in here, he says that there's a public easement on every road, which there isn't, because private roads don't have public easements on them. However, I'm going to assume that he actually was meaning a public road. There's a public easement on every public road. He lives in Illinois, so because he lives there, he knows everything about the laws there. So congratulations, Scott. There's several case laws about this, and a highway in Illinois is typically 66 feet wide, so the easement would go 33 feet on either side of the center line. Well, if the highway is 66 feet wide, then yes, but what if it's not, Scott? So I'm going to stop there, because I'm asking about the, he doesn't provide any citations beyond it. So he only gives citations for the easements. All right. So we're going to look at it. These are the ones he provided. Okay, there is a public easement on every public road. That's what I assumed he was saying. So he links to 605 ILCS 5/2. Now 5/2 is a whole chapter, or an article, I guess they'd call it. He doesn't say where it is. The only place they mention easements in this article is in their definition of a freeway. And no, it's not going to say what you want it to say. A freeway is a highway or street especially designed for through traffic and to, from, or over which owners of or persons having an interest in abutting lands or other persons have no right or easement, or only a limited right or easement of access, crossing, light, air, or view by reason of the fact that such property abuts upon such highway or street or for any other reason. It's a really complicated way of saying that either they have no right to do anything with the freeway, or they may have a limited right of access to the freeway for, like if the freeway is built low and they build their building next to it, and there's light that's getting into the windows of the building, then the state may not be able to come back later and build an elevated portion of it, or build a retaining wall or something that's going along the side of the freeway that might block their light, etc. Or if they're building like elevated freeways through the cities, then it may revoke. I don't know. But the easements they're talking about here aren't easements of like being able to be a pedestrian along it. There are easements of being able to get on and off that particular portion of the road from your adjacent property, or having a right to cross that particular stretch of freeway, or build up over it, or something like that. So there you go. Or go underneath it. Like if it's an elevated one, you may not have a right to build underneath it. Anyway, so this chapter doesn't say what he wants it to say. It's definitions, and it's all cool and everything, but it's not saying what he wants it to say. And links will be in the description. I'm not trying to hide this from you. I'm just not going to spend 20 minutes reading this whole section to you. If you think it's in here, look for it. Link will be in the description. Knock yourself out. Second one is Pilgrim v. Chamberlain. Pilgrim v. Chamberlain is this one right here. This one is where the city wanted the road bigger, and the reason why they weren't able to make the road bigger to what the statute requires, 66 feet, but this particular section of road was established by a prescription. Basically, it was a private road that the public had been using for long enough time that it became a public right of access on that private road. It's a property kind of issue. It's not saying that there is an additional easement alongside of the road. It's saying that the road itself, the private road itself, the public has a right of access to it now. The public can drive on that private road because the public has been doing so for 15 or more years. That's Illinois law. Now, there's a statute that says that any road that is made according to the statute has to be 66 feet wide. And this one wasn't. So they wanted to make it 66 feet wide, and the court said no, because you don't have a prescriptive easement that covers it. Semmerling versus Hadjick. It also doesn't deal with it. Basically what he did was, let me re-familiarize myself with it. The width of the paved roads plus 6 feet on the side. All right, so this one said, all right, this prescriptive public highway, again, it's a prescriptive easement. So he Googled easement, Illinois, whatever, and he's coming up with these. Again, this is a road that was a private road that, because it had been used for 15 years or more, became a public highway. And because the plat showed a 40-foot wide driveway, but they were only using a they had wood fences along the side. They'd been using it for a long period of time, and then in 1991, the guy marked it private, and so then there was a action to make it public again. The defendant, the property owner, requested the trial court to find the boundaries, and he claimed that the evidence demonstrated that the use and maintenance of the road was limited to the paved portion of the driveway and that the surrounding grassy areas were not used in any way. So he's saying that they'd only used the paved portion. They hadn't used the surrounding grassy areas. So the prescriptive easement shouldn't cover the sides on this particular case. And again, they go through the definition. There's a section of the Illinois Code that says a highway can be any public way for vehicular traffic which has been used by the public as a highway for 15 years. So a private road that's been used by the public for 15 years becomes basically a de facto public highway. All right, so the 40-foot width applies only to the roads established under the Article 6, Division 3 of the statutes, not the code. And so they concluded that the statute does not govern the width of the public highway established by a prescriptive easement and has no bearing on the issue. And hold on a second. Plow the road, blah, blah, blah. The extent of prescriptive highway easement is determined in part by the public's use of the area. And there's no evidence. Here, there is similarly no evidence that the public uses grassy areas on either side of the road for road purposes. To the contrary, the evidence established the public use was limited to the paved portion of the road. The trial court certainly was not required to conclude in the absence of any other evidence that just because township mowed those areas, the prescriptive easement encompassed those areas, etc. Based on all the foregoing, we conclude the trial court committed no error when it established the width of the prescriptive highway easement as the width of the paved road plus 6 feet on either side of the paved road. What they're saying there is that the record was enough that the trial court could determine that that was used that whole area was used. Enough. Finally, there's the City of Highland Park. And the City of Highland Park, let me refamiliarize myself with this one. Okay, so on this one, the city wanted to build out a whole roadway. And the issue in this one was he wasn't arguing that they couldn't use the road, but what he was arguing was that the drainage ditch alongside the road that was being maintained for the purpose of maintaining the road so that traffic could go on it. He didn't want that to be considered part of the prescriptive easement. So the court found that that was actually part that was used for the purpose of the road for the public. And so they could build all the way out to the edge of that. They could use up the whole ditch area too. So, and that area was enough that they could build the entire roadway or repave it because, the road is a public highway by prescription. So again, what this guy did is he just Googled. He did a quick Google search. I guarantee you he didn't read any of these. Oh yeah, finally it's for the U.S. used. So he thinks there's a federal law that says there's prescriptions. And I went too far, so we're going to go back. It's this one, 43 CFR 2650.4-7. 2650.4-7. Public easements. Again, he just Googled public easements. And lo and behold, this is for the Alaska Native sections. And the purpose of this is to provide procedures for orderly and timely implementation of those provisions of the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act. It has nothing to do with Illinois. It has nothing to do with the U.S. in general. It is for a very specific and particular purpose, dealing with Alaskan Native lands and the easements that they were going to put on it were things that were going to allow various things like electricity and access, like roadways and things like that, through these native lands. They wanted to limit it. So they basically, there was very few ways that that easements would be allowed to go across these lands, like for international trade, to get people to and from, and electricity to and from, fuel to and from, etc. Various federal and state buildings on these lands and whatnot. So no, he did not provide citations for what he was claiming. And this is why I ask for citations. I am not saying that he's wrong. I'm saying I have a job. I have a job. When people are saying, oh, he gave you the citation 9 hours ago. Steve Tunis, he literally gave you several cases in the law in his other comment 9 hours ago. Crickets. I've been at work, dude. Like, yeah, I was at work, adults work, and I don't have time at work to peruse through my comments and read cases that the poster didn't bother to read himself. So there you go. You're welcome. This is why you should always hire a lawyer and not a cop cam, because cop cams can't win cases. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.